Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Joys of Living Great on the Win-Win Women Television Network, and we are streamed around the world. The Joys of Living Great is a program that's designed for all women, women of all cultures, women of all nationalities, women who may speak different languages than we do, women who look differently, women who think differently, but we have one thing in common. We are all women. This is the program where you can come to learn about those life things and life situations, and where we share the joy that we've had in those situations. So today is a special show. Today, for the first half hour, we're going to talk about grandparents and what grandparents share in helping each of us. None of us would be here without a grandparent. Think about it. Let that sink in. None of us would be here without grandparents, because none of us are the Immaculate Conception. So every one of us at some point, whether we knew them or not, had to have grandparents. Grandparents' Day is Sunday, September 11th. And that is a special day. It's a day when, since if we couldn't be here without grandparents, if we have grandparents or we know grandparents, we should be celebrating them and honoring them for sure. So today's show is actually dedicated to that. We'd like to talk first in that first half hour about the joy that grandparents bring to us, joy that they've given to us, joy that they pass down to us. And in our second half, we're going to give away some prizes. If our audience comes in and you have brought a grandparent, you are a grandparent, you have your great-grandparents, we're going to give some prizes out in our second half of the show today. So let's start by talking about what is it that grandparents have done that you can think of that they've done specially for you. And it's an open mic. This is definitely one of those, as we always do it, pop in, anybody's ready, just go ahead and let us know what grandparents or a grandparent has done for you.
Well, I would like to start off by saying my grandmother instilled values in us, and they told you how to be disciplined and told you right from wrong. You had to do things in a certain way. And one of the things that's passed down from my grandmother to my mother to me to my son was that when you go out, you need to have a destination. You just don't go out wandering around. You had to know where you were going, because you couldn't just say, oh, I'm going out, and end up someplace getting in trouble. So you just had to have some discipline about you. Know where you were going, what you were going to do, remember what your parents taught you and what they said. And another thing, we weren't allowed to go out every day to someone else's house. You had to stay home, sit with your own family, talk, play games amongst yourselves with your siblings. That you had to be disciplined. Like today, sometimes kids just have too much freedom. They want to do me. That was no such thing back when I was coming up. And from my grandma, my mom passed down to me, and I passed down to my son, and hopefully he'll pass down to his kids.
Well, since you're a grandparent, I'm sure that his children, your grandchildren, are seeing some of the same rules, some of the same principles that was passed down from your grandmother to your mother to you. So you as a grandparent, you're actually passing it down too, right?
Yes, I am.
That's good. That is good.
I would add, my grandmother was known for feeding the needy. She fed all those that were in need or hungry. They would just stop by her house. And she had a very inviting spirit, and she operated in gifts like healing. So she was very special. And I remember her being very funny. But I know for me, what I got from her, my cousin told me that I have her spirit to love all of those that, are hurting, and just love them genuinely and help. I love to help people, those that are in need. So she left that with our generation.
Oh, that's good. So your grandmother passed down love and how to love, how to give and share to others. What might be some of the things that your grandparent did to on a daily basis, like, at home? What might have been some specific tasks or things that a grandparent may have done that they taught to your parents?
I can remember
Go ahead.
I can remember my grandmother always, praying and singing around, singing hymns and around the house while she was working. And that was passed on to my mother as well. The importance of praying, definitely reading the Bible and singing those hymns that we don't sing too much now today, but yeah.
Yes, but that's been passed down to you because now you sing. You sing in a very famous church choir, and you all record. So that is something that was passed down from your grandmother to your mother to you. Does your daughter sing as well?
Yes, she does.
So that's a trait that's passed down. Those are the kinds of things that are always passed down. Anybody else want to share with us what your grandparents have passed on or passed down to the generations?
Well, for me, my grandma was similar to Brenda. My grandma was the music lady. She was an educator. But she also, and a few of my cousins are teachers, but she also taught piano lessons and taught music and taught singing lessons and did things like that. And the music thing, hit me and my sister, the singing, but she took it a step further and taught me how to sing. I did different, college scholarship things where we had to, do a talent, and the singing was absolutely my talent. She played many instruments. I played many instruments. My mom did not get the music thing, but it skipped on over to both her daughters. You know what I mean? But my mother loves music. Now she loves music and will sing, but the singing thing hit me and my sister big time. And now my sons, they're into the instruments, and my oldest son sings. It just is something that just tumbled, it happened to be on both sides, and both grandmothers, it did. But this specific one, my maternal grandmother, was really big and influential on my music journey and my willingness to want to teach people the information that I have, share my information, because she was big on that as well.
For those of you who are just joining us, this is the Joys of Living Great. And today we are celebrating grandparents in anticipation of a great grandparents' day on Sunday, September 11th. Right now, we're just having open discussion about the things, the principles, the things that grandparents have passed along or passed down to generations. Do you have any other thoughts that you want to share? Well, let me ask this question and think about this one. I said at the beginning that none of us would be here without grandparents, and you all have to agree. So you had two sets of grandparents. You have paternal grandparents and you have maternal grandparents. Which of the grandparents, maternal or paternal, would you say was closest to you and your family when you were growing up? Is that a loaded question?
Well,
I
for
would
me,
say-
my maternal grandmother, because I didn't know my paternal grandmother.
Okay,
I didn't meet her, so it was my maternal grandmother.
okay, that's good. Anybody else?
And for me, it was my paternal grandmother. She spoiled me, so
Your maternal,
the paternal grandmother, yes. That's what
okay.
I always looked at. She always gave me what I.
That's your mom's mom. That's where that singing came from.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, anybody else?
Hey, for me, it was my paternal grandmother because my father had died early on in my childhood, and my grandmother made sure to visit with us and connect us with that side of the family more often. So she filled in the shoes for like her son, in essence, made
Okay.
herself available, visible, and made
Mhm.
sure the siblings always came and checked on us as well. So it
Okay,
was that the closeness with that paternal grandma.
okay, good. All right.
So I had the opportunity to have both. But my maternal grandmother, saved woman, Christian woman, but her influence on the family was musical, musical in many ways. My paternal grandmother was the prayer warrior. So she got the prayer thing with us, instilled in us. So I think I had the honor and privilege to have both of them impact. I think maybe equally.
That's great. That's
Mhm.
really great.
A blessing. Mhm.
I think I see Regina's mouth moving, but you're on mute, dear.
Oh, there we are. There we go. I was fortunate enough, my paternal grandparents, I knew both of them, and they lived in another state. And back in those days, when you picked up the phone to make a long distance charge, you were charged. So we got to speak to them very rarely, saw them during the summers. But my grandmother, I realized the love of writing I got from her. And she took great pride in writing letters. And I, to this day, will uh, just make a handwritten note as opposed to typing something out on the typewriter, because that's something that my grandmother instilled in me. But my greatest influence came from my mother's side of the family. Unfortunately, um, her parents died when she was very young, but fortunately, she was adopted by an aunt. So I got great influence by spending summers and weekends. Our religious foundation, she ensured that that was in our life. She was a seamstress, so anything dealing with the homemaking, she taught us how to sew buttons, outfits, and I sewed my whole wardrobe when I was in middle school, from middle school on, based
Wow.
on the lessons in sewing that she gave me and allowed me to use her sewing machine. But from a grandfather aspect, because my grandfather was not alive, died very early. I think my mom was 12 years old. I gravitated toward his brother, my uncle. As a matter of fact, he was such an influence in my life, I named my second son after him. And he looked, what they told us, he looked like my grandfather. And he was a savvy businessman. He was worth over $250,000 when he actually died. And he had the greatest, I think, influence over my life, because proximity taught me a lot.
Great. So now, none of us have mentioned grandfathers as much as we've mentioned, grandmothers. And I'd like to just point out that it's not anything that's purposely done. But what it does signify is that you, as women, you are important in this world. And the roles that we play in our families as women is so important. And if you think back, even though some had both grandparents and some didn't have the advantage of having all four grandparents, the gender that stands out most in leaving an impression and teaching you something specifically that you have carried down through your life and will carry on and pass down to your grandchildren, that was a woman. What bigger tribute could we give today? How could we better say that we really do honor women? What better way to recognize that the woman who actually does so much and often is not applauded for it. But just look at the impression that these various women had on our lives. I can remember my grandmother, and I can remember my great-grandmother. I was fortunate enough to know my great-grandmother very, very well. And the thing that I remember about her that I didn't understand at the time was she would get up at the crack of dawn, before dawn, and cook in a wood stove, and she would make breakfast every morning. Every morning. We only were there during the summer, maybe for a week or two, but every summer we looked forward to that. And during that time, we learned how to pick different fruits, because those were the fruits that she made jellies from during the summer. And we learned how to pick the best ones and eat the best ones before we took them in the house. But we learned, so like now, if you're going to pick a peach, when you're in the grocer, I kind of know what to look for because I know what it should feel like and I know what it should be. So I know I'm getting a good peach. So those are little things that you don't even think about, but they're things that go with you. So when she would get up so early in the morning to cook a full breakfast, I just, as I grew up, I thought to myself, geez, I don't think I ever want to do that. But I had to do the same thing. But it wasn't so difficult knowing that she had to get up and do it on a wood stove. All I had to do was get up and turn the burner off. So it was easier for me. But those are things that stick with us throughout life. And those are the kinds of things that we have gotten from our grandparents. Now, how many of you who are on today are actually grandparents? So I know I'm a grandparent.
I'm a grandparent of two
Oh, my.
grandchildren.
Okay.
One male, one female.
Mhm.
Yes,
All
so am I.
right. So we do have some grandparents that are here today. When you think about your grandparents, well, let me ask you this, since I did meet and I've been visiting with my great grandparents more than one time. Did any of you have that opportunity?
No, I never had a chance to meet my great aunts, great uncles, yes. But not great grandparents. They were all, I believe they were all deceased by the time I was born, but I never knew them. I never knew of them, but it's ironic because my granddaughter has 2 sets of great grandparents. A lot of
Ah,
actually gets to see. So I was like, wow, that's a great turnaround. She
mhm.
has, oh God, 4 sets of grands. She has all her grands and then 2 sets of great grands. And she has
Well,
a
nowadays,
last one of them.
it's not unusual at family reunions to see pictures of 5 generations.
Mhm.
That's not unusual at all.
Yeah, we just recently had like a family reunion, and it's ironic. Our, Katrina and I, our mother-in-law just passed last year, 102.
Wow.
So there was a point where there was I believe she was a great great.
Great, great, great.
She was a great great grandmother. So it was wonderful to see. It was wonderful to see, and a lot of moments captured that were spoken of just Sunday in church for us. So it was a blessing to have her.
Mm.
Mhm.
I did
What
have
is
an
some of,
opportunity to have my great grandmom. That's the one they call Big Mama, and she was around for a long time because my mom was the oldest, her oldest grandchild. So she was the firstborn of her mother. So we did have an opportunity to spend many years with my great grandmother.
oh, good. Okay. How many of you, well, let's see how many grandchildren we all have for those of us who have grandchildren. I have 6.
I only have one.
1, 7. How many do
I
you
have
have?
I have 2, one boy and one girl.
Okay. Yeah, Regina, we know you got Zip.
None.
Zip.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Soon,
Not yet.
soon,
Not
soon,
yet.
Regina.
Not yet. But when they start coming, you might have an overflow.
Oh, and it will truly be the joys of living grandparents. Great. Whenever it happens, look forward to that joy.
Oh, that would be a wonderful time, I'm sure. I am sure that would be a great, great time. It always is, when it happens. Yes, it is. It's a great time. Now, there are people also in our lives who weren't really blood relatives, may not have been blood relatives, but you knew them like, as an example, the mothers in the church who always were around and had that grandmother persona. That's the only way I could think to describe it, because they would be the ones who you would look up to as grandma, and you sometimes called them mama, or in the church they're called mother, and their names or whatever. So did you have any experiences with people who fit the role of grandparents but actually had no children?
Was a lot more common than people actually realize. And those church mothers, they took their role very seriously, whether they had actually given birth to a child or not. We were always taught to obey your elders. So it didn't matter whether or not they were in our bloodline or not. They were our elders, and we gave them the same respect that we would our grandparent or our great grandparent. And because they took their role so seriously, they poured out into us as if they were their own. And it not only existed in the church, it existed in the community. There may have been an older woman or older man in the community, and you gave them the same respect that you would give your grandparent. It was always Mr. this person, Miss so-and-so, yes, sir, no ma'am, we gave them that same respect because they always had something to impart in us, even if it was, don't go on that street, don't play over there, don't do this, how are you doing in school? Not our blood relative, but they took on that role of just being one for the ages, I would say.
Right. There were, I think in every community, maybe, there were these people, and because they were the age of your grandparents and they grew up with some of the same struggles that your grandparents had, they knew what could happen to you. So it was like they were looking out for you just as if they were your grandparent, and sometimes they knew your grandparents and sometimes they didn't know your grandparents, but it was just that role that they took on to kind of look out for any of the children or any of the kids that were coming up. It makes it kind of comforting, really, to know that you grew up in an environment where there were a lot of people who were looking out for you.
Definitely the village concept at work. I mean, the neighborhood, yes. The church, yes. In the family, yes. But at the time, it didn't feel like it was so comforting.
Mhm.
Anything that went, listen, anytime you get in trouble on the bus and you get home and your mom already heard about it, I'm like, okay, you had to deduce that somebody on that bus knew my mother or my grandmother. And man, but today, I wish we had more of it.
Mhm.
I really wish that we had more. Because it really was caring. It really was a looking out for us as children, and I think our kids, would really be so much more at ease and so much more respectful, I'll say, of that position of mother, grandmother, and whatnot. If we had just a few more people that cared, like enough to say, hey, I'm gonna tell your mom, and sometimes we didn't even get told that it was just, I'm like, wait, how did that happen? So, and grandmoms, knowing people and connecting with people, you're finding out, yeah, I know your grandmother. Yeah. And are you Vincey's granddaughter? I'm like, oh,
Yes.
wow.
Yes.
Oh,
They knew your grandparents. Absolutely.
yes.
I can remember one day, one of the teachers said to me, at that time, my name was Saxon, Faye Saxon, sit down because I know your mama. I taught her. So, okay, yes, that's the kind of, people that grandparents, and that's the kind of relationship that grandparents had, and the way grandparents actually act during the days that we were growing up. We need right now to let our listeners know what's coming up. So Regina is ready to do that for us. Will you let us know, what do we have coming up? Remind us, or let me remind you that this is the Joys of Living Great on the Win-Win Women Television Network. And today we are honoring grandparents.
Yeah, speaking of the roles of grandparents, they always found a way to inspire us. But we here at the Joys of Living Great have found a way to inspire you every day. I'm speaking of our Joys of Inspiration. We have a new ebook that is coming out. It's updated every week with a verse and some words of encouragement, something to inspire you every day. And guess what, everyone? It is free. When I say free, it is free. It only costs you 1 second of your time. Go to the Joys of Living Great Facebook, and you'll see the link there. You'll see a post there that will guide you through the process. Once you get on it, it will say purchase or it'll say buy, but it costs you once again nothing. You hit that button that says purchase. You give us your contact information that we can send you this weekly. And I tell you, once you receive this, you will be blessed and inspired every day. It is written by one of our authors, one of our renowned international best-selling author, Brenda Sawyer. And you can receive this on your mobile device, on your tablet, on your computer, any means of communication, you can do it. So go to your Facebook account, give us your email address, and smash that button that says get it now, and you will receive a download. We have so much more coming for you in the future. It involves finances, it involves everything. We're looking forward to November, the joys of being thankful. December, the joys of giving. There is just so much more in store for you. But guess what? You can start now just by going there to our Facebook, entering in your email, and I'm telling you, when I say smash it and hit it hard. And you're going to love what you receive on a daily basis as far as inspiration.